so I have to be consistent on this. I hated that loss so much. I hated it. And it feels like the sports gods were a little cruel to me personally in that regard, that I was not able to enjoy the greatest moment the Prince has had since the playoff victory against, if I may steal a turn of phrase from Brew, another one of everybody's All-Americans, Matthew Stafford. Or I'm sorry, Justin Herbert, pardon me. Because it came at the expense of my team. All last year, I railed against these stats that were like, the Chiefs are the worst 5-0 team in 10 years. You know what those same exact stats are saying this week? The Chiefs are the best 2-3 team in 10 years. I hate that. I don't want to be the best 2-3 team. I've said forever on this show, I believe winning is a skill. I do not care about your look at the yards per play, look about the explosive. And so the things the Chiefs did well in that game are not things that, A, I value immensely when it comes to winning a championship, and B, not concerns I had. If I went into that game worried about the Chiefs' offense, then I would understand why that game would make one feel better. But I take as a given that with a healthy Patrick Mahomes and a functional offensive line and a receiving core with a pulse, the Chiefs are going to be able to score points. So I was not shocked that they moved the ball. But I said on this show 3 weeks ago, what makes the Chiefs different from these other teams is while they might not blow people out the way other teams do, they don't blow leads. They were up 14 points. I said all week, they can't lose that game if they don't turn the ball over. And Patrick, listen, even the greats get got. That was no one's fault. And it was Patrick's mistake. It was a great play by Lloyd, and he got. He didn't see him. That's rare, but it happened. I hate dumb penalties. It was rife with them all over the game.
13.
And special teams matter. And the Chiefs' special teams this year, where it's always been at an advantage, was a deficit. Again, it's a fifth straight game Butker made a mistake, and the same special teams player, Jack Cochran, had back-to-back holding penalties on kick returns, the last of which I think cost him a chance to tie the game. If he doesn't hold there, I think they get in field goal range. So it didn't shake my faith, but it was maddening, and it was incredibly damaging because they had the opportunity, Brew, to erase the 0-2 start divisionally and just be one game behind Buffalo. And they had it. They had that game, and they gave it away. And I'm not used to the Chiefs giving away games, so that bothered me. I still think they have the ability to be a great team, but you got to win football games. And they didn't win the football game.
Very fair.
That's why they call me the mayor of fair as well.
Very fair.
I said after they trampled on my Ravens, the Chiefs are back. And now after that game, I'm saying, no, they're not. You know, and what I mean by back, I still believe like they're one of the best. I really do. They're one of the best teams in the AFC. But when they beat the Ravens, and you were right, like your first, it sounded foolish at the time, but the Ravens defense is just that bad. And 28 points against Jacksonville is not bad because they have a really good defense. But in that game against the Ravens, it like, oh, my. And wait till Rice gets back. Like, the offense is going to be great. And a lot of that was just how bad the Ravens' defense is. Although they have improved with Worthy.
Yeah, I thought the offense was excellent against Jacksonville. I mean, Patrick made a mistake. They're one play from 35 points, you know, against a very good defense.
It wasn't, I mean, the offense wasn't bad, but this loss, what it told me is they're a good team. And I know the record isn't good, but I view them as one of the best teams in the AFC, but not head and shoulders above everybody else in the AFC. And that's really what they've been for almost all of Mahomes' career since Brady left the AFC. That's what they've been pretty much, except for since 2021 when they started the season slowly. Now, that year, though, Kelsey was still in his prime. Tyreek Hill was still there. This year, while like I said, obviously I'm still giving them a shot to get to the Super Bowl. But Mahomes that was a huge mistake, the pick six. Kelsey's made the mistakes against Philly when he dropped the pass that led to the interception in the red zone. Harrison Butker's made mistakes and missed field goals.
And Chris had the real
and
bad
Chris
moment
was
at
just
the end of the
loafing. Yeah, so you're seeing some of their top guys. I'm not going to say they're not plugged in, but it's just different. Like, you usually don't see that. So, and on top of that, Nick, there's this. They haven't beaten a team. The three teams they've played with winning records have all beaten them.
That's right.
So, look, I think they'll bounce back. I think when they get Rice back, there's going to be another jump. But right now, for at least, they're just another good team in the AFC.
Yeah. This is so funny. As someone who's actually Mr. Consistent, who's actually the mayor of fair, when they beat the Ravens, I wasn't like, oh, they're back now. They're back. They're proof they're great. I was like, Baltimore Ravens are an absolute mess. They are an absolute mess. And now when they lose this game against the Jags, my faith in the Chiefs hasn't even remotely been shaken at all. As the guy who gets probably the most avalanche of hate from Kansas City Chiefs fans, wrongfully, I may add, about, I get tagged as a Chiefs hater, this, that. So when I made my rankings, I had the Chiefs as a top 4 team, which is funny considering I'm a Chiefs hater when they're literally 2-3, and yet I'm like, oh, they're a top team in the NFL. Weird how that works, right? This loss, and honestly, this is tough because first things first has been off, and so this this conversation already feels dated right now, honestly. But the reality is this. The Chiefs are just not as buttoned up as you would think they are. When Brew kind of said the Chiefs have been head and shoulders better than everyone else and whatnot, I don't think that that's necessarily been the case. It's their execution has been head and shoulders better than everyone else. I think it would be fair to say that, like, for instance, in 23, the Baltimore Ravens had a better roster and were even playing better football than the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's totally fair to say. And even the 49ers, maybe, with Brock Purdy. But the Kansas City Chiefs' execution was flawless. And so when you're talking about winner-take-all playoffs, I think about it. It wasn't so much all of the most magnificent head and shoulders better plays that the Kansas City Chiefs made, for instance, against the Ravens. Now, when it was time to make a play, you have Travis Kelce making that like leaping, diving catch. And you have the other kind of like falling down, kind of like one-armed catch against like his body type of play that Travis Kelce also made in that very game, right? And when you compare that to during the regular season when everyone's dropping balls and whatnot, but then now you have your main tight end, your main piece, who's making like just incredible catches. And on the other side of the field, you have the Ravens making mistake after mistake after mistake, right? Just bad throws, bad penalties, bad turnovers. Like, it's just bad. But you watch that game and you're like, the Baltimore Ravens played bad. And you never really ever watch the Kansas City Chiefs necessarily play bad. Even when the games that they were winning ugly, for instance, last year, it's not like you would say they're playing bad. You weren't like watching Mahomes. And again, Mahomes definitely in the beginning of that season definitely had a run where he was not playing great. It was interception out. He had more interceptions than touchdowns in those first like 7 games, or whatever exactly that cutoff was. I think it went up to like the Saints, I think, or something. I forget. I'm not gonna look it up now. But he was not playing his best brand of ball, no matter who the receivers were. But for the most part, though, you weren't like, this team is bad. This team is just doesn't look right. They can't get it done. I never really had that sense, honestly. I mean, even a game here now against the Jags where they lose, I watch the Jags play and I watch the Chiefs play, and I'm just kind of like, I'd rather play the Jags than the Chiefs. You know, if you're a big Broncos fan or an Eagles fan or a Ravens fan or a Bills, whoever, you're like, I will play the Jags. If you're like, hey, it's a playoff game and you got to choose between the Chiefs and the Jags, who do you want to play? It's like, I'm gonna pick the Jags. You're like, I feel more comfortable with that, and so that's why like there's no faith that's being shook right now, because there's also plenty of season left. If you're entering the playoffs right now, if next week was the playoffs or this weekend was the playoffs, then I think it would be a fair question to be like, can they get it all together? Can they get back to executing at the highest level? I also think now that the defense has not been as good as we expected it, as it had been for the last, 2-3 years or so. And that is still something too, because when the Chargers offense was healthy, they cooked, right? The Jags, for the most part, cooked. They were able to do what they needed to do. The Eagles' offense has not been, hasn't been playing complete high-level ball as much as they want to. The Giants with Russell Wilson is a disaster, and the Baltimore Ravens have been a mess. So it's just like those games, you kind of have to, look at it through a very specific lens. But in some of these moments, like, it's not hard to imagine if the Baltimore Ravens were just a lot more competent and were actually playing at a high level, it's not hard to imagine that they would have been able to do what they wanted to do or do what they needed to do against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is why I'm so fascinated to see how this Lions game unfolds. That's actually because that is an offense now that is playing at a high level. Now, they've also played some lesser teams like the Ravens and whatnot, and some true lesser teams like the Bengals. But when they played the Packers, their offense didn't look like that. And it was week 1 and et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, that it's all fair analysis. That's why I think right now, like, it's going to be fascinating to see what does this Detroit Lions offense now look like against the Kansas City Chiefs. And here's where football is awesome and fascinating. When you actually are not so hyper obsessed with the outcome itself. And when you see them play against the Ravens and you're not immediately like, oh, they're back, because it's like, to me, that was the wrong take. And now Brew's kind of like, I was wrong. That wasn't the right take. And it's like, yeah, you can't just go up and down with the wins and losses. And now they lose to the Jags and you're like, they're not back. And it's like, well, okay, well, you're just too hyper-focused on the outcome. But it is interesting because, again, the Lions, people were kind of like, I'm concerned. That did not look good against the Packers, a good defense. And then they started playing some worse teams, and they got back in rhythm, and they're like, we're back, baby. And then you go up against the Ravens, and that felt like that was two great teams going head-to-head. And then in hindsight, you're like, the Ravens are actually not a great team right now. Like, they are a legitimate mess, and their defense is a mess. You're like, that's a real thing that's happened to the team. So you're like, I don't know right now. And so now when the Lions and the Chiefs play each other, it'll be really fascinating. Because you could be right and wrong at the same time with the take, because the Lions now could look great against the Chiefs and their offense could be rolling, and we could really just be like, well, you know what? Any competent offense right now and is going to look pretty good against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Or it could be, no, the Lions offense is legit. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Doesn't matter the injuries. They're a great offense. And so, yeah, they just got after the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Or if the Kansas City Chiefs now slows down the Detroit Lions offense, we could be like, see, this defense is great. The Detroit Lions offense has been rolling. You're like, has it though? Because it's only really played well against bad defenses. So, and you don't really know what the true answer is yet. It's why I keep preaching, like, you don't have to have a firm rooted conclusion every single week, or by like week 6. I know, like, someone said this in the comment section. They're like, well, if you can't predict, if you haven't seen enough out of the Detroit Lions or something to make to make a conclusion right now, then what good are you? And it's just like, I don't really know how to answer that, man. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. You want me to say right now that this is the conclusion about a team? That's not how the real world works. That's how people try to convince you it works. That's not how it works. And so that's what's fun. That's part of the mystery. That's part of the puzzle of trying to unpack all this type of stuff right now. You're trying to figure out who these teams are, the level of consistency that they have, the level of quality of play that they have. Like, I've been watching the Jags play. The Jags are 4-1, and I have said this now multiple times before. I was one saying I think the Jags are going to be good this year. and that Trevor Lawrence is going to be great with Liam Cohen. And now that's what I kept saying. And yet they're now 4-1, and I'm like, I don't feel that I'm seeing what I thought that I was going to see, even though they're 4-1. So it's just like, for me, it's just very much like, what do I see? It's not just the outcome here. So this Lions versus Chiefs game it's both going to be very telling, but also the big potential to be a red herring and a little bit of confusion. So depending on which team you're looking at it through. So I'm all for. I'm okay to be confused throughout the course of the season. I'm okay being like, I don't know how to 100% make sense of this just yet, because again, it's only the first few weeks. We're in week 6 right now. So there's still plenty to learn and plenty to unpack here. But the best thing that the Chiefs do have going for them is the sense of we are not full strength here. And that when we do add a Rashee Rice, when we do get some of these younger players in line, when we do kind of get everything back in a rhythm, we're going to feel pretty good. We're going to feel pretty strong. We're not playing our best brand of football right now, but one, we believe we're going to play better football. And two, we're also just going to continue to just bank on other teams not being able to execute consistently at a high level. Even these well-coached teams, the Chargers, the Broncos, whatever it may be, the Chiefs, the core of them is still, we are the best coach team. We have the best coach quarterback trio in terms of, Andy, Mahomes, and Spags, that in these biggest moments, we got it. Now we are reliant on the Xavier Worthies, the Rashee Rices, the Butkers and whatnot to also be able to step up in those moments too. And for now, since 2018, they have risen to the occasion. And right now it feels like they're rising a little bit less to the occasion, combined now with a mistake or two from Patrick Mahomes. And now you find yourself in a, 2-3. Will that trend continue? It just seems harder to believe. And if it does, then I don't know. You gotta then that becomes its own conversation to try to figure out why. But I'm just not going to necessarily make that assumption. So my faith in the Kansas City Chiefs is not shook, because I fundamentally see them as the team that executes at the highest level. And I don't see that necessarily fundamentally changing. Now, is their roster just not good enough to that no matter how well, right? Andy Reid, Spags, and Patrick Mahomes could be out there for the Cleveland Browns, and I don't think now they suddenly go on a Cleveland Browns dynasty necessarily. So could it just be that the roster is just not quite what it once was? Maybe, but I don't know. I don't think that's what we've necessarily have been seeing just yet. So it's kind of a wait and see situation for me. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? Has that loss shaken your faith in the Chiefs? And how do you feel about the game against the Detroit Lions? What do you think some of the takeaways can be for that game? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.